Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and for those of us joining us now, welcome to Politico's Competitive Europe Week. My name is Gregorio Sorgi, and I'm a finance reporter at Politico. We'll now be talking about the European Parliament's financial services agenda, and we'll have with us three of the top lawmakers who've been working on financial services over the past few years and who'll continue doing so over the next term. Before we start, let me just remind you that there will be a dedicated Q&A session at the end for our audience in the room, so please start thinking of your questions. And let me welcome on stage Jonas Fernandez, Spanish MEP from the S&D and member of the Econ Committee, Stefan Berger, German MEP from the EPP and also a member of the Econ Committee, and last but not least, Stéphanie Jean-Courtin, French MEP from Renew Europe and also a member of the Econ Committee. And I'd like to start with Mr. Berger, because we've often heard, and us journalists have written in our stories, that the next mandate for FS regulation will be more about implementation than about proposing new legislation. With this in mind, are you worried, and do you think that it might be hard for the Econ Committee to stay relevant here in Brussels?
Time to leave.
So, if now I say yes, I can leave the stage. No, of course, I think the Econ Committee is one of the most relevant committees in the European Parliament, and I'm sure that you have heard all day long what's all about investments, that we need more investments in the 21st century in Europe, that Europe is showing a very weak growth. We had the Draghi report. I'm sure yet that you have discussed these things. And Mr. Draghi says that we need 800 billion euros each year, that we need investments for AI, for new technologies, for energy, for whatever. And the main aspect we have to discuss in the Econ Committee is how we can ensure the amount of capital which is needed for all these things. And for me, and then I close my first words, for me, it's very important that we do not get the money with deficit spending. My perspective is that we shall, or that we have to develop a very strong capital markets union, and I think this is the beginning of the discussion which will lead us in the next 5 years to a better situation than we have now.
Yeah, I'd like to hear Jonas Fernandez on this. What will be your priorities for the next Econ term?
No, first, thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you to Politico and everyone to attend to this seminar. I remember the debate at the beginning of the previous mandate because I think that the mood was similar. Yeah, at the beginning of 5 years ago, people thought that during the past mandate we didn't have, or we will not have a new legislative proposals, and maybe the most prominent committee in the parliament could be ENVI, even more than Econ. And at the end of the day, if I invite you to analyze how many reports and new legislations we passed during the last mandate in Econ and compare it with the legislation that, for example, was passed through ENVI. And if I let you, the result is that in Econ we will pass more, much more new regulation that our colleagues from Econ, from ENVI, sorry. So, so for the new mandate, if we need to summarize the situation or what we should deliver during these years, I think that we have some legacy from the previous mandate and maybe legacy from many years, and I am talking about banking union. On this matter, we don't need new legislations. We need to deliver with the legislation that we have on the table, on EDIS, for example, where the Parliament, or at least in Econ, we had a position, but we don't have any proposal from the Council, and CNDI. Yeah, and in that case, by the way, Pedro Marquez, who was one of the rapporteurs of the CNDI, now we need to deliver with the trialogues with the Council. But as my colleague Stefan said, during this mandate, we will expect more proposal on capital market union. Yeah, we need to advance in the consolidation of a single market, as the latest report said, or the Mario Draghi's report. And I think that here there is a debate, or at least different views about what the capital market means. Yeah, so at least from my perspective, in Europe, we have a surplus in our current accounts, so we have, in theory, enough savings, and the problem is that we are not able to invest our savings in Europe, yeah, because we are exporting savings outside of our jurisdictions. And the problem, at least from my perspective, is that we need to remove the national barriers that already exist to consolidate a single capital market. Yeah, and I think that this way to advance in the capital market is different. It's not contradictory, but it's different with other proposals to invite households on SMEs to put their savings in capital markets. Yeah, so I think that, for example, if we see the retail investment strategy, Stephanie is here, this is a strategy to put more savings in capital markets. I don't have any problem with this strategy, but my point is that we don't need 27 capital markets with more savings. What we need is a single capital market union. Yeah? And I think that this difference is relevant to analyze the proposal that at least we are expecting from the new Commission.
Let me now turn to Jean Courtin from Renew, because myself, and I'm sure many in the audience, are very excited and waiting for interpretation for the parliamentary hearings of the new commissioners that will soon be taking place in the European Parliament, most likely in November. The Econ Committee will be questioning Dombrovskis, the new Economy Commissioner, Albuquerque, the new Finance Commissioner, and as well-informed reporters, we're hearing that Econ is fighting to also take part in the parliamentary hearing of the Executive Vice President, Stéphane Séjourné. So do you think that the Econ Committee should be taking part in questioning the new EVP who will have oversight of the economy and who happens to be a party colleague of yours?
Yeah, well, you forgot Teresa Ribera as well.
Sure.
Yeah, because I mean, and I'd like to come back to your first question, because I want that everybody, before leaving this room, knows that Econ is the most important.
Yes.
Please. Most important, and as Jonas has just said, you saw more ENVI members because they work less than Econ members at the last mandate, but now it's time for change. You will see us more because we worked a lot. I mean, there is a lot of regulation. We worked a lot. Now it's time for implementation, but implementation means dialogue, means simplification, so that you will see us more. It doesn't mean that we won't work but differently. No, I mean, joke aside, yes, as you see, I mean, Econ will be involved with many hearings. It means that we are really at the core of it, you know. And of course, echoing what my colleagues have just said, we first need to finish the job, the unfinished files that we have started. And also there will be one urgency, which is Capital Market Union. And so back to your question, because I see you saying she won't reply. Yes, I will. Of course, I'm sure, well, I think it would be a good idea to hear Stéphane Séjourné, because he will have in his remit, but not only him, because as you rightly said, he will be Executive Vice President, and Maria Luis Albuquerque will be in charge more principally on Capital Market Union. On this thing, Capital Market Union, you know, is just like a jigsaw. You know, for each puzzle, sometimes you don't know which piece, you know, you have to take when it's completely fragmented. And the best way to do a jigsaw and to give you the incentives to finish this puzzle is to choose, identify, and prioritize the pieces. You won't take them all. That's the same for us. And the good news is we've already started to work on the CMU, and Ronas has just said that on the retail investment strategy, for example, we've got a text from the Parliament. We've got a text from the Council, and I'm glad to see that as rapporteur, I will discuss that during trilogues. And I've got good hopes that we will put this small piece within the CMU puzzle, because, I mean, it's a massive, massive priority, but it's very important.
And since you mentioned the parliamentary hearing for Albuquerque, what will you be asking her? Do you want to give us a preview?
Well, do you pay for that?
No?
Okay, anyway. Well, many things. Well, actually, I'd like to know when exactly the Commission will start, because we all know, I mean, there is a huge momentum on the fact that, of course, CMU is important. We all know that, and the financing, investing is key. And is vital for Europe, vital. So the question is not if, it's how and when. And so the thing is, my first question will be, is the Commission ready to start really early? You know, because if we start by the end of the next mandate, then it will, you know, we will take time. So I think it's very urgent to start acting, and the method as well. As I said, we are now more in implementation mode, and in this implementation mandate, the role of the European Parliament is often forgotten, you know, and it's very important because we need to scrutinize the work of the Commission. And in this, I mean, it's also our job to push for priorities, to push for urgencies to the Commission. So what's the methodology? When will the Commission start working, I would say, concretely on the CMU?
Okay, and one last question before moving to the other panelists, because you mentioned risks. So when will the next round of trilogues take place, and what would be your strategy to secure a deal with Council?
Well, I think the first round of trilogue will take place. I don't know, I mean, depending on the hearings of commissioners, of course, because, you know, commissioners take place to trilogues. We have no commissioners, so no trilogue. But then, what we know so far is that hearings will take place normally by the mid-November. So by the time they are approved, I don't think we will start before January. But I mean, the soonest the better. And as for what we will push, I mean, I fear we have the same approach. You know, between the Parliament and the Council. The only thing is, I tend to hear the industry and also the presentation of the consumers saying that it's a bit too heavy, and we need to simplify the rules. So this is something I'd like to push for: more simplification, making sure that we have, you know, regulation fit. For the job and for the challenge and purposes it is adopted.
Okay, then my next question was on the...
Thank you.
The next question on the parliamentary hearings is for Jonas Fernandez. I also have a question about Albuquerque, because what can we expect from the Socialists and Democrats in their parliamentary grilling on Albuquerque? Should we expect any questions on her controversial sale of the Portuguese state-owned airline in 2015, or her stints in international banks that have led to some to talk about a potential conflict of interest? Is this something that you think will feature in the parliamentary hearings in November?
No, thank you so much for the question. I think that this is a very interesting question, which I cannot answer now. Yeah. So let me now express the strategy of our group during the hearings on this case. In any case, as I said before, I think that there is room for advancing in the capital market union, and the new commissioner will have to lead this work. We think that there is. We can increase the consolidation of capital market union. Yeah? And honestly, there are some issues in the mission letter that, at least for me, at least we have some doubts. Because as I said in my first speech, we are not in favor to move more savings to capital markets if we keep the current capital markets in the national barriers. This is what we need to avoid. Yeah? And I think that here maybe this is a tricky issue, but the point is that in Europe we have enough savings. We have a surplus in our current account. The point is, or the problem is that our savings are not invested in Europe. And why our savings are not invested in Europe, at least from our perspective, is due to the national barriers. The national barriers which create any problems to invest the savings in the place, in the business, in the sector where these savings will be more profitable. And the way to advance on this project, as I said, is trying to remove the national barriers. And this is very different to dysregulate the market. Because if we dysregulate the market, keeping the current national markets, we will not solve the real problem. We will not advance in the capital market union. Maybe there will be more savings in capital market, but we will not be able to achieve the consolidation of a single market in capital. And this is what we think that we need. Yeah? So here is neither a trade-off. Yeah? It's different ways, or at least complementary ways. I'm not completely against, or I am a skeptic, but I not any problem if we want to invite, to promote households, SMEs to put their savings in capital markets. That's fine. I don't have any problem with this. But this is not the capital market union. Yeah? And I think that the new commissioner will have to explain properly what she would like to do. And as I said, the hearings, we are preparing the hearings. Even this morning, we finalized the written questions to the commissioners. As you say, the current candidate was a Minister of Finance in Portugal some years ago. Every candidate has some pros and cons. And in the group, as you can imagine, we are preparing the hearings. Yeah.
Mr. Berger, do you have anything to say on what your colleague Jonas Fernandez said on the CMU?
I agree. We have a lot of savings, and these savings are not invested in Europe. Okay, but the reason is not only that we do not have a single capital market. Of course, we have to do some steps forward. In the mission letters, they call it European Savings and Investment Union, but I think it should be the same. But before we develop something for more investments in Europe, we have to see why are the savings invested in other places in the world. We have the Inflation Reduction Act in the USA. Energy is cheap there, and a lot of things around the European Union have changed, and we have a lot of bureaucracy here, and an old continent. And I see in Germany all the big companies. The new lines of investments are all made in the USA. Of many reasons, bureaucracy, Inflation Reduction Act. And so what we have to do is to give Europe a frame that the investments can made here better. And this is what I see. It's not only because of course it's fragmented. Of course we have 27 national capital markets, of course, but it's not the only reason. And to give the first answer, I will be careful to say what she wants to do, but to give a first answer, we have to develop a single market in this question. And for this single market, we need some things, some changes. We need big European authorities for supervising, like the ESMA or something, but Euro-wide. We need clear regulation for insolvents in whole Europe. So this is what we need, and then big investments will take place in Europe. But before we have not done this, we can only sit here and say, okay, we have the Inflation Reduction Act. And so we need to do very hard changes to make sure that savings are done in the European Union and not in the USA.
And I have another question for you on the talking of banking union, which is something you've all been working on and thinking about for the past 5 years. In these days, we've seen a potential trans-European operation with UniCredit making a move to buy Commerzbank, and it's being met by resistance by the German government, although it goes in the direction, arguably, of a banking union. There have been people saying that Berlin is putting national interests above the EU's interests. How would you respond to that?
Okay, what I think to this UniCredit and Commerzbank, I think this is not we have to divide this question. I think this is a normal thing between two banks, and this is not a question of a banking union, because UniCredit has a specific mix in their assets, and what they want is another mix, and for them the Commerzbank is perfect. And otherwise, I don't know if it's the other way around. I don't know if it's fit. But this is a question of two companies, of two banks, if you want to say. And of course, the UniCredit could not have done this thing without the German government, and without a German government which acted too late and which was not aware of the situation. This was the thing. But the German government acted, in my view, not right. They did not save the Commerzbank. If they wanted to save the Commerzbank, they didn't save the Commerzbank, and they didn't do something for the banking union. But this is only a question of two banks. For the banking union, this is the next thing. Of course, if we want to develop European champions, then that is the questions you mentioned from Commissioner Ribera. Then this is a question of another commissioner. Yeah, we have if you want to do some mergers, we have to change our rules. This is the next thing what we do, and we have no. Also the situation to develop a banking union is not in a way that European banks will do that in a friendly way or in a positive way. And now this is what we have to change.
Jonas Fernandez, do you agree that the response of the German government was right, and that this was simply an operation between two banks, and that it's not going in the direction of a banking union?
I don't have enough information to analyze properly or in depth this operation. Yeah, but it's true that we need this kind of measures in the banking union. Yeah, as I said, in relation with the capital market union, we can rely on banking union. The Parliament and in Econ Committee, we has been working well during the last years to have an EDIS proposal, for example, to have a CNDI proposal, because we think, as Draghi and let us report, that we need a single market. And if we don't have this single market as we would like to have, this kind of operation could help to move the current banking markets to a single banking union. Yeah. So I don't have enough information to define what we should do or no, but I would like not to see any kind of political bias or political interference in this kind of measures, because this kind of measures goes in the right directions to have a truly and a real banking union.
And speaking of banking, the EU has to implement new Basel standards, and there have been concerns that a Trump victory in the US elections in November could lead the US to water down its standards, and this could potentially leave Europe at a disadvantage. Do you think that in this scenario, if Trump does win in November, this could be sufficient ground for the EU to delay the implementation of these rules?
I think that I will not be the most popular member in this debate about what I am tell now. I'm telling now. Okay, we don't know what will happen in the elections. The point is, the level playing field, of course, this is an objective that we need to cover and to analyze properly. Yeah, and we want that European banks will be able to compete with other banks, yeah, in global markets. But if in the US or in other relevant jurisdictions they don't apply Basel, the problem or the issue is that we should reduce the possibility that the risk that for sure we will see in the American markets will come to Europe. Yeah? So in the financial crisis, we saw how the problems in America moved fast to Europe. And if the US does not apply properly the rules, the risk that there will be in the American banks will be higher. And in that case, we need to protect our banks. So my point is something different what the industry said. So of course, we need to follow the level playing field. But if the US does not apply or don't apply properly Basel, maybe we need to think if we need more capital requirements here in Europe. Because the probability to have a financial crisis in the US will be higher. And in that case, we need to be prepared for avoiding the transmission of the financial risk to our banking system in Europe.
Stephanie Jean-Courtin, you wanted to chip in. So how do you do this? How do you reduce the risk that the European banks could be subject to the risks that are coming from the US?
Yeah, well, just back on your question on the pros and cons for the on this project of acquisition or merger,
yeah,
banking merger. I think we have to, maybe to change the to take another context and to just think about competition within the context of globalization. And I sometimes have the feeling that we are still within the concept of competition between the member states. Whereas I think the word has changed, and that's exactly what Draghi has said. It's now or never, and it's not only Elvis Presley.
So if an Italian bank had done what they did to Commerzbank to a French bank, would you be in favor of that?
Why not?
Okay.
No, but why not? I mean, I'm a lawyer, antitrust lawyer. And what I know is, first, as Ronas, I don't know precisely, so I can say in principle, when you heard about a wedding, you're always happy. But if a wedding is done for the wrong reasons, there's a divorce. So it's the same. But only the two parts in the wedding know exactly if that's for the good reasons or not. They can tell us. Well, I would be happy to know exactly the reasons, but I don't know them so far. What I want to say is we need to revise competition in the context of this globalization and this competition within the whole world and between Europe, not between the member states in Europe, between Europe and the rest of the big parts in the world. That's it. Of course, we also need to take into account consumer welfare, which are the traditional, concepts of antitrust analysis when it comes to analyzing acquisitions or projects. Also, but we need to put industrial concept within it, and put into the context the global dimension of this new couple, let's say. But I think it's very important because that's really what we need to think about. When I say it's now or never, it's really not a joke. I think it's, for Draghi, it's very urgent. And sometimes I've got the impression that we are a bit, we don't have this broader view. And I think this is kind of detrimental. And of course, one acquisition, one merger will not make the whole thing. As I said, it's a holistic approach. And I think, as my colleague said, of course, redirecting savings to the real economy, if it's only a silo, national silos, then it won't, I think, work. That's why French, sorry, he's French, nobody's perfect, but he's French, like me. Christian Noyer suggested in his report the fact, the adoption of a pan-European long-term investment product, a kind of a decentralized, because he would take on the ideas, he would get inspired of what exists in different member states. I think this is interesting. It's kind of a best practice idea, and from the different national products that exist, it would try to build on that to create a European product. This, I think, is interesting, and I agree with the European dimension, with the ESMA maybe getting more power on that, because otherwise it will still be fragmented, and we still have national obstacles. And again, I mean, it's not a question of is a French against a German when it comes to a merger. No. It's more, do we want to exist tomorrow? That's or not, as European.
And on this note, I'd like to open the floor for questions. Raise your hand if you have a question. So over here, I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Anna Martin, Head of Financial Services at BEOC, the European Consumer Organization. I want to pick up one thing which Mrs. Commissioner McGuinness said earlier today. Consumers and European citizens are not so much worried about the Capital Markets Union, but that what they're really worried about is, can they really afford to retire? Do they have enough savings at the end of their working life so that they can decently live their retirement? And one question which comes to mind from our perspective is, what is the solution which you are presenting to European consumers and European citizens in this regard? Because you just deleted the ban on inducements in the retail investment strategy, which was, from our perspective, really a good solution. And I'm looking here particularly at you, Mrs. Joncatin, but also at Stefan Berger from the EPP, because you supported this deal while the S&D supported consumers. And I would like to hear from you, what do you want to see to make European citizens able to retire at some point?
You can go ahead.
Yeah, well, good question. On the citizens have a role to play in their retirement. We need to help them. And I think retail investment strategy could be a vehicle. Savings could be redirected. And it happens in some member states. I think savings could be, through a product, redirected to retirement, to make sure that people, not only the richest, there's I think public belief that when we talk about, I mean, it's a case in France. If we talk about capital, you're a capitalist, un méchant capitaliste. That's why I think Draghi said, union of savings and investments. He avoided capital because he didn't want to have the French against him. It's good because nobody will go on strike on this question, at least on this question. But then, so this is the idea. The idea is to work on, not only on, we have this retraite par répartition mainly in France and in many member states, but in some member states you also have, like in France, for the public employees, part of it which is redirected, and it comes from capitalization. And this is exactly what we need to dig up. Exactly. So, I think it's really time to discuss that without taboos, Without taboo, starting from and working also with Buck, I know that I see you tomorrow, so you know. Good time to discuss that. And there's no taboo. But I think we have to take into account national specificities and, when possible, trying to kind of harmonize or adopting a more European approach, of course. But of course, making people, and also there is one thing in the retail investment strategy which is key, and I discussed that already with Maria Luis, because I know she's got very good ideas on that, so I hope we will do things concretely together, is financial education. You know, I mean, to any kind of people. Because they've got the feeling that they are left behind and they need to go to the bank because they need to go and they need to put their money somewhere. But sometimes they don't really know why. They've got the feeling that they are stolen. They are benefiting of nothing. But I don't know if it's the truth. I don't want to discuss that because I know there are a lot of people from the banking sector here, so I don't want to have any problems, But no, it's a joke. No, the thing is really, I think it's important. Financial education is key also. And I think, I remember discussing with one UK authority on that, and they are trying to explore this, redirection of a part of the earnings or savings within in order to prepare its pension, everybody's pension. So I think I'm not saying that retail investment strategy will be a solution for everything. As I said earlier, there's no big bang proposal. And I said, I mean, it's still, again, a jigsaw. We have to select the puzzle, work together, having in mind that it's now time to act.
Other questions? Let's go over here in the front row. And yeah, please be succinct in your questions and answers because we only have.
Yes, good afternoon. Tanguy van der Werf from European Fund and Asset Management Association. Since this is Competitiveness Week and it's an event about competitiveness, a question on competitiveness. We know that Ursula von der Leyen has introduced this idea of a competitiveness check for any new proposal made by the Commission. Do you see a need for the Parliament and the Council to do the same for the most material amendments that you table? Thank you.
Who'd like to answer this first?
I think that is a joke. Yeah? The proposal, yeah? No, at least I think that in the Parliament we don't have enough staff to prepare any analysis about our amendments, yeah? So I think that we live in democracy, and I think that this is something that maybe we need to remind from time to time, and bureaucrats and civil workers are needed. We need the technical and the scientific information to take decisions, but in democracy, we vote and our representative people have to take decisions, always based on evidence, that's clear, but we cannot block the Parliament. And honestly, if we need to analyze our amendments by I don't know where, yeah, because this is the point, who will analyze our amendments? Who will take the decisions about if our amendments are factible or no? Honestly, we need to transfer the trust to some people that nobody voted. And at the end, democracy maybe is not the is not the perfect word, but is the best system or the less worse system that we have. Yeah, and honestly, I think that we need to trust on our representatives, in that case, in ours. Yeah, even though sometimes I can imagine that not everybody shares our views. This is part of the democracy. But let me say something on competitiveness, because as an economist, I studied many years economics, and honestly, I didn't, or no one explained to me what competitiveness means. Yeah, I know well what productivity is, for example, or economic growth, or GDP, wherever. But competitiveness is a word, at least polysemic word. Yeah, and maybe an example on banking regulation. Yeah, maybe if we can say, no, we need to compete with other banks, we need to reduce our capital requirements to be more competitiveness. And I think that most of us could agree, okay, if we have less capital requirements, our banks will be more competitiveness. But maybe if in the short term there is a crisis, maybe some part of our banking system could default. And in that case, we will say, okay, but what is the best way to increase the competitiveness? Yeah. So when we analyze competitiveness, we need to introduce always a time horizon concept. And the problem is that when you introduce this time horizon, the debate could be different. In the short term, something could be very competitive, could increase the competitiveness, but no in the medium term. So this debate, okay, I am a politician, so this is part of the political...
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. Yeah, it's part of the political debate, or even journalists. But if we go to the basis, honestly, I don't know what the competitiveness check means.
But
Mr. Berger, you want to jump in?
just something to add. I think competitiveness, it's a way of saying productivity.
Yeah.
And this is what it's all about. And of course, we have a lot of things which are against European productivity and competitiveness. And I have some. If you look to the USA in the last period from 2019 to 2024. 5,500 new laws were adopted in the USA. And in the same time, 5,500 in the USA, in the same time in Europe, 13,000. So of course we have too much legislation here. And when Ursula von der Leyen started, she had the idea of one in, one out. Do one thing and one out, and we analyzed it in our EPP group. And in the end, if you have summarize it, it's 3 in and 1 out. And this is too much. Of course, too much, because so SMEs, they all have to cope with the situation. They have to fill all the papers, and this is too much. So we have to make a big step forward to make it so people easier to work.
Yeah. I'm afraid we're running out of time, but I'd like to thank the speakers for being with us today, and I'd like to ask the attendees to remain seated, as there will be another session moderated by my colleague Carlo Martuscelli on reviving the Capital Markets Union to finance Europe's competitiveness. Again, that word that you don't like.
30 seconds, yeah, because
30 seconds.
We need the banking union and capital market union, as the mission letters said, but in the mission letter there are the sovereign funds, the European fund, the investment fund, so at least there are 3 funds proposed by the President of the European Commission that nobody knows how we will be financed. So maybe this is another issue that we will have to work during this new mandate.
Another panel.
That's for another panel. Thank you again.
Thank you.